25 minutes. That's all the screen time they had, and yet, despite sharing that with Karasuno, in 1 and a bit episodes, they became an incredibly interesting team. There's something you've likely struggled with before, given the views on the last video I spoke about this topic. But although I've gotten a lot better at it since then, these guys gave me the final piece I couldn't find on my own. Johzenji High are Karasuno's first opponents in the main preliminary round at spring playoffs, and up until now, there'd been a lot of focus on teams that play very differently to Karasuno. Datetek's solid blocking, Aoba Johsai's balance, and Nekoma's unending receives. But here, for the first time, they face a team extremely similar to them. Everyone feels like some combination of Hinata and Tanaka. However, they have a truly unique view on volleyball. Unlike everyone else, upon meeting Hinata, and when the game is about to start, it's not we'll win or let's have a good game, but let's have a fun game. They seem more interested in having fun than actually winning. It's not as though they're not playing seriously. It's clear that part of the fun is winning, and that if they weren't winning, they simply wouldn't be having fun. And so Yamaguchi repeats Shimoda's earlier words to him. To truly have fun, you need to be strong. Now, that age-old question of how to balance simply enjoying ourselves with whatever our current pursuits and ambitions are is something that's bothered me for a long time now. I often find myself at either extreme end of that spectrum and being unhappy as a result. As I mentioned in this video here, at the time, I was working so hard to the point where it was affecting my health. However, I've also had phases, especially if I go back to before I started this channel, where I wasn't really doing anything. I had that constant awful feeling of I should be doing something right now. But Johzenji gave me a really good framework for finding a good middle ground, which I'll come back to. Now, as a team, they're reckless, disorganized, and definitely have their flaws, but they also have some crazy attacks and are clearly a very skilled team. So what's the difference between them and Karasuno? A lot of their players would honestly fit in quite well with Karasuno's attacks, and vice versa. But their captain in particular is very aware of Daichi, who's clearly the kind of player their team lacks. And in the second set, he says to Hinata, "Your captain is good, but he's boring." When asked why he thinks that, he doesn't have an actual answer. And this is a small thing before I get on with the rest of the video, but I'm sure we've all done this before, where we write something off as boring, even though it'd actually be super beneficial for us if we did it. For me, it was, well, I don't want to write and follow a strict gym plan because that would be boring. I just want to turn up and do whatever. And I wasn't saying that out of laziness. There wasn't actually a real reason for it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done that. You shouldn't be so quick to write things off as boring. And to go back to volleyball, why did Johzenji write off practicing receives as boring? There really isn't any reason. And they seem to realize that as they watch Daichi and Nishinoya. And I guarantee once they went home and practiced a few receives, as soon as they started to see some progress in them, they would have found it as fun as spiking. Not just because it enables them to spike and play more, but also because the only reason they likely found it boring was because they didn't fully see the benefits of it. As their old captain said, to play you first need a playground. And of course to spike and set, you first need a receive. I've honestly found how much fun you can have to often be limited by how much boring stuff you're willing to do. Unfortunately, it's just impossible to enjoy something all the time. No matter how much you enjoy something, we'll inevitably have periods where it just kind of stops being fun for a while. And even when it is fun, there's always that one part you don't enjoy, or at least don't enjoy it as much, but pushing it to one side or neglecting it often comes back to bite you. Ultimately, focusing solely on something being fun, whilst obviously fine if it's something short-term you're doing and not really planning to do forever, in the long run it ends up really hampering your enjoyment of it. The obvious example here being that the lack of a solid defensive receiver and general team cohesion caused Johzenji to lose this game, much to the frustration at the end of the match because they wanted to stay on the court longer. If they were more willing to do the supposedly boring work, they would have potentially been able to win more games and therefore have more fun. But there's something those of you with a grey memory might be wondering about, and that's that Johzenji spent over half their practice time in 2v2 games. As a result, they learned how to do everything by themselves, including receives. So surely they did practice receives. Well, technically yes, but it's noted by their coach that they see receives as something that they're just gonna have to do. As long as they get it up in the air, they don't particularly concern themselves with the quality of the receive, as after all, it's not what appeals to them. Their 2v2 training mostly just ended up benefiting their offense. Everyone is constantly looking for a way to attack or setting up one because they're used to having to do that. But surely they should also be used to defending all by themselves. They would have surely spent just as much time doing that. So why wasn't everyone great at receiving too? Well, simply because they just weren't as interested in that half of their training. But the reverse is true too. They weren't as interested in their receives because they weren't particularly good at them yet. I realized a while back, a lot of the things I wasn't interested in, I simply wasn't good at or didn't know much about. So to use Hinata as an example, he didn't really have any interest in receives initially, but once he began to make a little bit of progress in them and began to really appreciate all the little details that goes into making one, they started to really excite him, to the point where he was seen to be more excited about being the ball boy than even doing spiking drills. You have to make that little bit of progress for things to start to get interesting. And speaking of Hinata, it's this game where he seems to realize exactly that. Kageyama gets subbed off due to tanking a spike to the face, and immediately after, Hinata is also subbed off, as without Kageyama, there's not too much reason to keep him out there. And he's not oblivious to this at all. However, his response once he's on the bench isn't one of being disheartened, but instead, I want to play lots, and I want to practice lots. I have a lot I need to do. Immediately realizing his time on the court, his fun, would continue to be limited if he wasn't willing to practice what he previously didn't consider as fun as spiking. It does take him a couple seasons to really start doing so, but do remember that in terms of actual time, those two seasons were pretty close together. As the game moves into its second set, Karasuno starts to really pull ahead, and Johzenji's fun starts to come to an end. Desperate to have fun again, their only plan is to get even more hyped up, to try even harder to have fun. But their ex-captain once asked them, there'll come a time when things aren't fun anymore, and what will you do then? Their response being, we'll just try even harder to have fun. But it doesn't really work that way. A great example, which definitely isn't a coincidence, is Daichi. Imagine if when the club was downhill and he was struggling to find a way to enjoy it, his response was, well, whatever, I'm just gonna keep having fun. It not only probably wouldn't have worked, i.e. he wouldn't have really enjoyed it, but eventually he would have had that realization that his time in school is about to end and he's wasted the opportunity he had in his third year to go with these talented newcomers to nationals. Not only did he end up seeming to enjoy the training he did, but now he gets the fun of playing with his team and winning loads of matches. Not to mention, there's really nothing boring about the way he plays. But anyway, when what used to be fun isn't anymore, often the way around it isn't to try and have more fun, but to do the boring until it becomes fun, which is their manager's last words to them before they step out on the pitch. Stick with the hard times so you can keep having fun. As following this, Johzenji stepped back on the court and are noticeably different. They've reached a much better middle ground. Just because you're having fun doesn't mean you can't think about what you're doing. By combining their wild play style with a little bit of calm, diligent thinking, not only do they do much better, but they find it's even more fun than before. And in a very similar fashion to Hinata later on, their captain suddenly realizes the excitement of this side of the game he never really appreciated before. Johzenji do still end up losing this match, and why do they realize this all a bit too late. It's frustrating that the time has come to an end so soon, but their managers are pretty happy about it. Here, at the very end, they've become a brilliant team. Between recognizing that there's times where trying to go too fast can actually slow you down, and accepting that sometimes things are gonna be boring, but pushing through that lets you get to the fun part. I've been able to get a much better balance in my life than I ever have before. Of course, where's best for everyone on that spectrum is going to vary a lot. There's a little part I left out earlier when Johzenji's coach talks about how they just try to get the ball up. He also mentions that it actually works really well for them. Unfortunately, I can't really help you out with that part. It's something you're just going to have to try and test out yourself and see what works best for you. But, you know, just be honest with yourself about it. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe. And I'll see you soon for a new video on a character that follows on very well from this video. Have a great day.